A South Korean activist flew to Japan to protest against the country's plan to dump treated nuclear wastewater into the sea. Diana Flores has the details.
A delegation of 7 South Korean activists arrived here in Japan to conduct a series of protests against Japan's plan to dump wastewater coming from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The 7 activists are representatives of South Korean civic groups, and on Thursday, the activists held a press conference outside the residence of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Tokyo to condemn the Japanese government and the Tokyo Electric Company or TEPCO's decision to release wastewater from the crippled nuclear power plant. They also submitted a protest letter with the signatures to the Nuclear Regulation Authority administrative body of the Cabinet of Japan, established to ensure nuclear safety in the country. They also went to conduct a forum with their Japanese counterparts. According to South Korean activist Jung Eun-yong, there's no completely safe way to treat a nuclear contaminated water.
방법은 일단 명백하지가 않습니다. 그런데 그나마 현재 가장 나은 게 육지에 보관해서 시간을 보내는 것입니다. 핵물질은 반감기라는 게 있으니까요. 시간을 보내고 그 다음에 생각할 일입니다.
Lee Won-kyu, another activist, said that South Korea's Busan is among the closest port cities to Japan, and dumping nuclear water into the sea will also affect the livelihoods of their people.
부산 같은 경우는 일본하고 가장 인접해 있는 항구 도시다 보니까 핵오염수가 투기되었을 때 가장 빨리 영향을 미치는 곳이라서 부산 시민들이 매우 민감해져 있는 상태고 불안감을 많이 느끼고 계시기 때문에 저희들이 그 불안한 마음들을, 분노의 마음들을 같이 담아서 서명운동을 펼치게 되었습니다. 저희 세대에 끝나는 문제가 아니라 미래 세대까지 영향을 미치는 큰 문제라고 생각하기 때문에 그래서 반대하게 되었습니다.
A series of signature campaigns were held by 63 civic groups in Busan, South Korea since June 1st, and so far it has received more than 111,000 signatures from people who oppose the dumping plan. Ijo, Diana Flores, Tokyo kara Hokuko itashimashita. SMNI News, Japan.
This year marks the 70th anniversary of the Armistice Agreement, which sought to end the Korean War. And two rival Koreas have different ways of commemorating this historic event. Let's know more about this report with Ethel Park.
The two rival Koreas mark the Armistice Agreement anniversary, with Pyongyang showcasing a grand military parade with top military leaders of China and Russia present. The signing of the armistice halted the 3-year Korean War and was considered as the longest negotiated armistice in history. On July 27, 1953, the military leaders of North Korea, China, and the UN, command led by the US, met at Panmunjom for a ceasefire agreement. The signing of the armistice ended hostilities. However, a peace deal has never been signed. A military armistice commission was set up to negotiate and implement the agreement. However, 70 years later, in 1994, North Korea decided to withdraw from the military armistice commission, marking the breakdown in communications. The only communication channel still open is a hotline located at Panmunjom. At present, North Korea conducted a grand military parade to showcase its newest military drones and nuclear missiles in Pyongyang. North Korea sees the armistice as a victory in what it calls the Grand Fatherland Liberation War. Korean leader Kim Jong-un shared the stage with Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Lee Hong-song, the vice chairman of the Standing Committee of the Chinese National People's Congress, together with their delegation. During the event, Kim Jong-un was seen shedding a tear while singing North Korea's national anthem. North Korea so far conducted 5 military parades since October 2020 parade at night. Meanwhile, South Korea marked the armistice in a more somber mood by holding a ceremony in the city of Busan led by President Yoon Suk-yeol. The event was attended by 4,000 government officials, guests, including guests in foreign and South Korean war veterans, as well as their families and descendants. The ceremony took place under the theme Freedom by Dedication, Future by Alliance. Throughout the 3-year war, about 1.95 million soldiers from 22 countries fought for South Korea under the UN flag, while North Korea was supported by China and the Soviet Union. Although it has been decades since the armistice was sealed, it's important to keep in mind that the two Koreas are technically still at war as no peace deal was signed up to this day. Seoul, Subagoitel Park, SMNI News, South Korea.
The era of global boiling has arrived, as said by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He also called upon world leaders after announcing this month will be the hottest month in record history. Justin Nazario reports.
Climate change has reached a terrifying point. This is what the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres announced on Thursday, July 27, 2023. He revealed that July 2023 might become the hottest month ever recorded on Earth, according to data from the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, and the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service.
Humanity is in the hot seat. July has already seen the hottest 3-week period ever recorded, the 3 hottest days on record, and the highest ever ocean temperatures for this time of year. The consequences are clear and they are tragic. Children swept away by monsoon rains, families running from the flames, workers collapsing in scorching heat. For vast parts of North America, Asia, Africa, and Europe, it's a cruel summer. For the entire planet, it is a disaster. The era of global warming has ended, the era of global boiling has arrived.
Meanwhile, Carlo Bontempo, the head of Copernicus, shared that the extreme weather experienced in July is a harsh reality of climate change, and it's a glimpse of what to expect in the future, as forecasts suggest that temperatures will continue to be much higher than usual. Meanwhile, WMO Director of Climate Services Chris Hewitt gave a worrying prediction. He said, there's a 98% chance that one of the next 5 years will break the record for the hottest year ever recorded. Hewitt also described conditions this July as remarkable and unprecedented and urged action on climate shock adaptation.
We would need to adapt to those heat waves to take care of vulnerable societies or whatever it might be, the environment. So yes, there's a need to adapt to increases in temperature. And then, as you asked in the question, there are other extremes as well, so extremes, flooding, droughts, windstorms.
Meanwhile, Carlo Bontempo, director of the Copernicus Climate Change Service at the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecast, or CEMWF, said that such measures are necessary and feasible.
Typically, there are actions, even inexpensive action, that individual and local administration can take to limit the exposure, to limit the vulnerability of each one of us to this temperature.
Both scientists have also urged governments and individuals to take action to protect vulnerable populations from heat waves. Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General made it clear in his statement that humans are to blame for the arrival of the global boiling.
And for scientists, it is unequivocal. Humans are to blame. All this is entirely consistent with predictions and repeated warnings. The only surprise is the speed of the change.
With this, Guterres called upon world leaders to act swiftly and decisively.
Leaders must lead. No more hesitancy, no more excuses, no more waiting for the others to move first. There is simply no more time for that. And all actors must come together to accelerate a just and equitable transition from fossil fuels to renewables, as we stop oil and gas expansion and funding and licensing for new coal, oil and gas. Credible plans must also be presented to exit coal by 2030 for OECD countries and 2040 for the rest of the world.
One of the main actions the UN chief called for was to stop using coal in developed countries by 2030 and in the rest of the world by 2040. This step is considered crucial to combat the worsening climate crisis. Reporting, this has been Justin Nazario, SMNI News.